Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Reach Mahjong League. We have a B3 matchup today. We have two people that haven't been on stream before, so looking forward to that. Looking at the players right now, we have Gaetano here as the East player. On the South player, that is Brian. Blank across the way is Jean, and on the left is Jessa. So when we actually look at the standings for these players, we have two that are kind of right around that cut line on the promotion to B2 next season, and then a couple that are right around the -10 range or so. So not out of it, but really looking for a strong showing here to be in that good position. Of course, a couple wins, and you're definitely in that promotion zone with the remaining 8 games left that you would be having in this B3 league. So don't know too much about these players. A lot of new stuff, especially in B3, and so uh, looking forward to seeing how that works out. Of course, we see plenty of players here in B3 because it is the largest division. Started off with 36, I believe there are 34 now. So lots of action all the time here, and the game's about to start. Dealer has pretty decent hand here. Pinfu, Tanya, maybe a Sanchoku. You also have a Dora. I guess maybe not the Tanya with the 8-9. So on the right, we have a pair of Sal. So maybe just call your Yakuhai. And the rest of the shapes aren't bad either, but not much value yet. You're pulling a Dora, maybe that's about all. Across the way, that is a Ricci Dora 2, probably. You will be looking for a pair. Of course, you draw the 3, so you can also add Pinfu. And on the left, we have a Dora, decent shapes everywhere, but not particularly good ones. The 7 mon would help, the 3/6 mon would help, and of course the 5 so would help. Dealer definitely upgrades the shape here. Could even turn this into an Ipeco with a couple 3s or a couple 6s in pin.
Each.
But there's the first Tempai across the way. This is a Ricci on 3/4, 3/4/7. It's one of those shapes that you don't normally see, but you have the potential Kanchan with the 3, and then the effective Rihanna with the 4/7. So it's Richidora 2, potentially Richidora 3, although we see all the 4 so are dead, so that's not going to come out most likely. But as for the other ends, we have the 3, there are 3 out, so 1 left, and the 7s, there are 2 out, so 2 left, 3 outs left. And Dealer has a very strong incentive to push here. There's already Ishan 10 for Ricci, Pinfu, possibly Peiko, and Dora. I think you just push the 1 here. I mean, it doesn't feel good, but I don't think you can really fold from this shape.
Sumo.
It does push it, but there's the 3. 3 so delivers with Ricci Sumodor 2. That is a Mungon. Just like that, Jean jumps out to the lead. And Brian has a very good starting hand here as the dealer. You can see, especially if you pull in the 4 so or 7 so, this looks very clean. Potentially, maybe a 2-3-4, 1-2-3 Sanchoku. Most likely just Ricci Pinfu, maybe Ricci Pinfu Tanya now, because you can always shift and throw the 1 pin later. On the right, we see the East pair, a couple 3 so, other pairs. I don't know. You obviously just call this, I think, because this hand is so slow otherwise. You have 3 pairs, it gives you an excellent option to get rid of one of them. Instead, passes, looking for a little more value here, but it's going to be very slow no matter what you do. You have that 2-5-8, which would be nice to connect anything to, but the rest of the shapes are pretty good. Across the way, we have a Tanya type hand, maybe an Ipeco in Mon, decent shapes elsewhere. You do have that extra floating 2 pin, which isn't great, but the rest of that hand's pretty good. And on the left, we have a Chun pair, great shapes in pin, and decent ones in Mon. And that is actually, I believe, an Ishanten, but throws it back because you don't really want the 3 weight. No, it wouldn't have been Ishanten. You will still have to call the Chun, and there is one Chun out, so not nearly as good as it might seem. Oh, and a bit of a backfire there on the right for Jean, having thrown the 2. Of course, you draw the 3. I believe that's how it always works. And there is the East call. Didn't want to call the first one, but we'll take the second one, especially now you pulled in a Dora. And on the left, now that is Ishan 10. Could even call, let's see. Oh, no, it's not Ishan 10. That's a 3, not a 4, so still looking for it. Now you have a Dora, so it's kind of, what do we want to do with this hand? And that, I believe, is a dealer tempai. You could reach either one, could even Dama this. So it's a Dama with the 3-mon weight. There's only one left in the wall. The big problem here is there aren't particularly a bunch of upgrades here. So normally you just Ricci this. Not to mention the fact that you get to scare the rest of the table, which is always nice. We have Tempai on the right for East Dora waiting on the 4-mon. There is only one of those left as well. Ooh, an interesting draw there with the 9. I think you're supposed to cut the 6 here because there is a Chante shift if, say, you draw a 2-mon and then can win on the 1. But instead just throws it back because that is the safer tile. And we now see an upgrade on the
John.
left of the shape, but the 4 comes out and that will deal in for 2,000. And John gets another win there and move to East 3. Great starting hand here. Pinfu, maybe a 79 Sunshuku, maybe even Tanya if you cut this 9. There you have your pair. There's a distant 2-3-4 Sunshuku even. On the right, decent shapes, but 2 Dora, so anything you get is perfectly fine. Ricci Dora 2, you'll always take. Across the way, we see a south pair. That's not going to be particularly useful. Decent shapes in Mon and So, but you do have a bunch of Kanchuns everywhere, needing the 5 So, 8 So, and that 4 will help immensely, fixing one of those. He is now Ishan 10 for Ricci or Ricci Pinfu. And on the left, well, the question is how much do you want to greed for the Junchan Sunshuku? Because you would potentially have to cut the 6-pin, 6-pin, but there are plenty of options. You can even call this and cut 6-pin, 6-pin for just Junchan. Instead, passes, and we'll just continue to play efficiently. And dealer here is at an interesting point because you have all those Ryamen. You have to cut one. The question is which one will get rid of. Gets rid of the 2-3 here. You do have some overlap on the pin shape with the 4, 5, 7, 8. So I think that's the normal cut. But the 2-3 is certainly understandable. Oh, and there's the best draw across the table for
Eat.
Gaetano. This is Tempai, Ricci Pinfu waiting on 5, 8 So. And we can see a whole bunch of those tiles highlighted right now. There is 1, 8 and 1, 5. So only 2 outs left, which always feels unfortunate. A row 1 Ricci Pinfu, they only have 2 outs in the wall. And the question here is, will anyone push against this? And the answer is, I think dealer would. Oh, that's a great draw. And yeah, that's definitely pushed with the 3. So you feel reasonably good about this. And that 2 fits in perfectly into that hand. But you will eventually have to throw the 7-pin on the right. And now you have your pair. We'll throw the 7. The 8 is safe, but is pretty much straightforward pushing here for the dealer for Ricci Pinfu Tanyao. Oh, and that 6 is an amazing draw there on the right. Cuts the 7 and is now Ishan 10. Except a whole host of tiles there.
Sumo.
But there's the 8. Just Sumo. Ricci Sumo Pinfu. No aura, but does get 2,700 and the Ricci stick back. Gaetano at least closed the gap a little bit. Still in 4th, but everyone's within 1,000 other than John, who is way in the lead. So we move to East 4. Dealer has decent chase, but you're looking for a 678 or 79 Sanshoku. You have a few extra floating tiles. The 7-mon would really pull his hand together, though. On the right, well, not much. I don't like those shapes at all. You have 2 Dora, though, so I like keeping the lone Yakuhai honors. Normally, I hate doing that, but in this situation, it makes sense. Because you pair those up, your 2 Dora makes bad shapes not particularly a problem. Across the way, there is a Dora as well. Decent shape, maybe a 5, 6, 7 Sanshoku. And on the left, we see the East pair. And interesting shape in pin. You have the overlap, meaning the 2-pin twice. But if you can get one of them, that hand all of a sudden looks very good. Dealer pairs up the 3-mon. We'll still need to cut the 9 So and probably 9-mon. But the hand's getting there slowly. Although now you draw that, and you have to at least consider the path for Chitoitsu, which is never a great feeling when you see three pairs and that is one of your likely outs. There's the East. It is not called. And dealer draws the 5 so and has an amazing shape now in so. Potential three-sided weight later. Still specifically looking for that 7 mon, which we figured was going to be the choke point in this hand. And it is definitely appearing that way. You'd like to go for the Tanya shift, but it's a little too late for it, I think. You still have to get rid of 3 tiles here. Now, with the West dead, you could consider it. Because you don't really want to end up in this jump on 3 mon and West, with the 2 West being dead here. Oh, a bit of a backfire on the 9 mon. Would have completed the Uncle, but that is the very last 9 mon in the wall, so you can't expect that to come in. Meanwhile, that hand on the left is really starting to come together. Potentially Ricci, maybe even Stananko could also accept a Dora, of course. And the other question is, where's that last East? Ooh, and that 5 says a great draw. Yeah, look at those shapes. Could add a Peiko now and so.
リーチ
On the right, we are looking at a Chitoitsu, the Suji to the Ricci tile. Well, that's not usually why it's considered dangerous, but could be an issue here. But yeah, we see the dealer just throwing the double west here because, again, it's pretty useless in this hand right now. This would be Ricci, Chitoi, Dora 2, and there is a 2-mon. It is Suji, and it does come out. Ricci, Chitoi, Dora 2. Any aura would be Hanemon. Will just get the Mongon, but just the Mongon is enough to really close the gap here and really push Brian into 4th place. Move to South round here. Dealer has a Chun pair, a whole bunch of pairs, honestly. I think you just go Toy Toy with this. Oh my, now it's Ishan 10 for Chitoitsu on top of everything else. And when you're in that type of situation, I like cutting the 7-8 pin, and I definitely would have called that 9. But I can understand the desire for Chitoitsu. But if you want to go with the Chitoitsu, you probably want to keep that north as your final weight. On the right, we have a Ricci Tanyao. I'm kind of looking for a way to get rid of that 1-2 pin, because the rest of the hand looks great. But if not, it's likely to be Ricci and maybe a Sanshuku, maybe a Peiko. Now you're going to have to get Dora eventually. And okay, there we see the 1 come out. So probably thinking the same way. Across the way, we see what's most likely Ricci Noa. There's a possibly Peiko in pin. And in the left, we see a potential 3-4-5 Sanshuku.
ポン
And now we see the first call by the dealer with the Chun. Of course, I really wish the 9 Mon and 2 pin had been called now. You would be Tempai, but a little bit behind in this hand now. There's the 1 pin comes out, really liking those shapes around mid pin. We'll eventually have to get rid of that 1 Mon as well. And on the right, we're seeing that last West kept as a safe tile for now. Not really liking the shapes as they are. I can't really blame them here. Ooh, now you're definitely looking for an excuse to go Sanshuku. Could even turn this into Ricci, Ipeiko, Sanshuku, Dora 2. Ooh, now the efficient cut here is the Dora. Will it be cut? Yes. So you have all sorts of options. It is much less likely that the Sanshuku here, but it does improve a lot. And that is
Eat.
Tempai on the right. And it is Ricci, Pinfu, Sanshuku on the 5, but the 5, as we can tell, is dead. Also looking for the 8. There are 3 of those in the wall. So it would just be Ricci, Pinfu, Sumo if that is the winning tile.
Boom.
There's the 2 pin. Dealer is now Tempai waiting on Forso and Hatsu. Hatsu would be Mongon, and it'd still be 7,700 if the Forso were to come out. Forso, we see one of those out there, but the Hatsu's still alive, I believe. So you're not feeling bad about that if you have 3 outs left. And
相撲
there it is, Sumo. Hatsu Toi Toi Chun. That will be a dealer Mongon. And Gaetano all of a sudden is blowing this game wide open. And oh my goodness, look at this hand. So I don't know that you can go for the Daisungan immediately, but you could at least think about it. But you're looking to call here. At worst, it feels like a Honitsu. Oh, now that's actually a kind of a bad draw because it really cheapens the hand. Maybe you just go for the East and the Haku instead of any extra value. Because I think you just have to call that. But it's not taken. Is looking for a
本
lot more value than I'm seeing here. But I think if you're going to do that, you go for the Honitsu. On the right, we see the double south call. It also has a floating Dora. Is Ishan 10, but would have to cut that Dora for Tempai unless the shape is good. Oh, there we see the 9-8 come out. Across the way, a 1-2-3 Sanshku definitely looks like the way that hand's going. And on the left, well, you have that Ryonkon in pin. The rest of the shapes aren't terrible, but you also have the overlap on the 2 9s. So that's one of those hands that accepts a lot of tiles, but is pretty low in Shanten. This means there aren't that many tiles that are going to necessarily improve it as much as you'd want, but there are a lot of things that'll shift in ways that'll improve your hand. We now see an Ishanten on the right with that 7-mon pulled in. You will eventually have to cut the Dora, though, if you take that. Well, that 3-mon's a little unfortunate. Oh, okay, well, that'll fix your problem. You just cut the Tuso here, and that is what
Gee.
is going to happen. As Brian is now Ishunten, and across the way, we see a Sanchoku Dora waiting on 5-so. But, oh, uh-oh. You could see a switch here, because that 6 would deal it, and
4
that'll be Mungon. Double South Dora 2, pairing up that Dora, and definitely closing the gap significantly. And now we have a bit of a dogfight for second place. Of course, Gaetano is way ahead, but everyone else very close. We move to South 2. Dira has decent shapes here, but you look at this and what do you want to cut? Honestly, the Dora is the most efficient tile I got, but doesn't really want the Penchon. I think that's the right way to play this. On the right, we have Ricci, maybe a 1-2-3 Sanchoku, maybe a very distant Itsu in Mon, but that very much is a wait and see type hand. Across the way, looks like Ricci, Pinfu, and a Dora. You could also upgrade to the Peiko Dora 2. And on the left, we see a Hatsu pair. And especially in first place, I think that's very much a call anything and get done with this hand.
本
And indeed, there is that first call of a Hatsu. The rest of the shapes aren't particularly great. You don't want that Dora floating around any later than you have to. But overall, pretty good hand. And this is something we see a lot in plenty of the divisions. People just don't want to cut Dora even when it's not particularly efficient. And one thing I will tell a lot of people is there's not a huge difference between 1,000 and 2,000, especially when we're in this lead. But if you can just connect to it, that will fix your problem very
Gee.
quickly. And we see a Chi here. Now, dealer will be going for the 4-5-6 Sanjuku. Does not want to cut Dora. Similarly here. We'll keep the option open for the Tanyao, but I think the aim here is the 4-5-6 Sanjuku. And across the way, that is a very nice little Ishan 10. Oh my goodness, now could be a Rion Peiko. Oh no, oh, I don't like that too. I think you just cut the 5 here. And if you pair up either the 7 or the 6, you have that Rion Peiko shape. And now we see a possible Sanchuku Tanyao shift from the dealer. But we'll keep the 1-so one more turn. Or at least until some sort of shape improvement happens. And there it is. I think you just throw the Dora here. It doesn't feel good to do so on turn 11, but it's no reason to hold on to it here. And Tempai on 5-pin for Sanchoku Tanyao, so that would be 2,900 if it wins. And that 5 pin is pretty dangerous in the hand to the left, but unlikely to come out because there's no pair yet. Might come out here, though. Okay. We see the 4 come out first. That is significantly safer. Oh, and you feel bad that it's a backfire, but of course you saw what would actually have happened. That was absolutely the way to go. Oh, and there's a 5 pin on the right, but that's not going to come out. I figure the 2 so, and it will.
リーチ
Oh, well, there's your 4. You actually have a Tonki wait. You have to choose which one, and we'll wait on the 6 mon. And this is something a lot of players that are new, specifically to platforms like Tenho, aren't particularly used to. Is once you hit that button, once you say the word Ricci, it is a Ricci. So there are no take back. You don't get to see how many tiles are left. And if it's a Tonki, you just have to take it. But that would be Ricci Ipeco Dora 2. So it would be a Mongon, regardless of how it is won. That 3 would significantly improve the shape, but it's not like you have much incentive to improve the shape here, but does anyway. Yeah, it's always something to consider on that last tile, whether the 3 or the 6 is a better choice. I guess there are a whole bunch of 9s out. Ooh, we see yeah, the fold on the left, 2 players tempai, and we have another South 2. Dealer has decent shapes here, but it feels just like a Tanyao type hand. Maybe a 3-4-5 Sanchoku. On the right, that is
ポン
definitely feeling like a Honitsu or a Toy Toy, and definitely goes the Honitsu route. And I agree with this. You're looking for value. You'd love to get over 30K, and that seems like the type of hand where you'd be able to do it. Across the way, it looks like I don't know, just a Ricci hand. I'm not really seeing anything there. You're not that far off from Tempai, but there's just no value yet. The value, on the other hand, is on the left with 2 Dora and a callable Dora Yakuhai. The rest of the shapes are pretty good as well. Could even turn this into a 678 or 789 Sanshoku, but most likely just call the South and be done with it. And the hand on the right is now slowly upgrading to even potentially a Toy Toy on top of the Honitsu and Haku. Well, that doesn't feel like a Toy Toy shape, but you'll take it anyway, with the 7 so on the right. And on the left, well, that's a nice little shape upgrade. And the question is, do you cut the 9 here, or do you cut... I don't like the 2 so, because I definitely want to be able to call the South. You don't have a pair now if that's the situation. But definitely keeping the Sunshoku option open. But see, this is always the problem, is you'd be able to just have a 9, and you'd have a serious decision point in the so tiles, because you don't really want to be waiting on those. Yeah, the 9 pin does nothing for this hand. It does come out. Another upgrade on the right. It is Ishanten. Not quite the shape you would expect, but if you can call the Shaw or the 5 so, that'll improve it, but not by much, actually. That looks like a better tile for the hand than it actually is. Oh, and there is Tempai on the left. Richidora 2. I think you just hit the button. I see no advantage to Dama here. You are in first place, but that's still a lot of
リ
value.
ーチ
And the first Ricci is across the table. It is a Ricci Nomi waiting on 4-7 so, I think. Let me see. Oh, it's a Champon. That's why. It's the 4 so 8 pin. That's why. And of course, the 4 so are locked up in the dealer's hand. And dealer probably is folding here. And the 8 pin, there are still 2 out, so that could come out, especially given the Ricci on the 5, though it is Suji, especially having come out after a 9. It's very strange to want the 8 there. Could see a call here for Tempai.
ポン
I think you have to take this, yeah. Cutting the 3 so would be Tempai waiting on the 8. You'd like to get a better shape, but you'll take whatever you can get. There is 1 8 left in the wall.
リーチ
And now we see the Sumagiri Ricci. Had enough of this, but I think if you do that, you just hit the button a while ago. Wanted to see a second call before the Ricci, but I don't think you've really gained anything. And all that's happened is you allowed the rest of the table to develop their hands a little bit better. Now, dealer at least has the option to go for the Cheetoy. Doesn't have to completely give up on this hand.
つも
Oh, there's the Sumo, Ricci Sumo. Or a two, and that's the Ricci Nomi picks up not only three Ricci sick, but then the Aura two for the Mungon, and in a much better position here. And Jessa is at 34,000. We move to South 3. Dealer has decent shapes, maybe 5, 6, 7 Sanshoku, but honestly, Ricci's fine. You may even just have to call for the Tanya here. You'd like more value. On the right, looks like an Ipeco in So. And if you can accept Dora, great, but it doesn't fit in quite yet. It will after some shifting, but unlikely because all the Dora are across the way. Has three Dora and great shapes elsewhere. That Forso would make that a monster type hand. And on the left, we have, well, a decent in Mon, and I think you just go Honitsu and pray with that because that hand is just hard to use. Oh, I don't like the 8, so I'm definitely cutting the 1 Mon on the right because there are potential upgrades to Itsu, there are better shapes elsewhere, and throw that 8 back could even potentially put you in 40-10. Well, now the hand on the left is starting to really develop as we have the ability to call the south anyway. Still no value, but good enough. Oh, there's the
缶
fourth Dora. And we see the con, and everyone goes, uh-oh. There are four doors showing. So now you have the question is do you call that south and just try and shut this down? And in fourth place, I think that's probably how I would have done it, but instead keeping those as
リ
safe
ーチ
tiles. And there is our tempai on the right. This is actually an Intotsu waiting on the one pin, one so, four so. The one so has one left, so not much there. The four so has one left, and the one pin has one left. I'm noticing a theme here. So three outs for this shape.
ロン
Oh, there it is. And it is just the Ricci, but an Aura will extend the advantage, and third and fourth are right up against each other. We have John at 20,200, despite that big start, and Brian at 20,000. But dealer here is Jessa and is looking to take over first and has the type of hand to do so. There's a potential Ricci Pinfu, maybe a Tanya Shift, maybe a 789 Sanshoku, maybe an Itsu in Pin, all sorts of options of the hand like this. The question is, how does it shift? And when you see nothing but honors discarded, you're like, I really wanted something faster here, but still in a very good position. On the right, looks like a Tanya type hand. You could go for more, but especially with your current score, you just want this hand to end. Across the way, you have a floating Dora, maybe a Ricci Tanya or Ricci Tanya Dora, or even just Tanya Dora. The 1,000 gets you out of fourth place, which of course would be effectively plus 10, means you'd be losing 5 from them instead of 15, which is a big deal. And on the left, that feels like a 789 Sanshoku, but it's going to be very hard to put it together. I guess you could just call the 8-mon with a 7-9 and turn it that way. And on the right, we're almost starting to feel like a Cheetoy, but I think just calling for Tanya is your best option. Ooh, and a one pin pair. Yeah, cuts the penchant here. The 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 is actually very maneuverable. You can do a lot with that. You can even draw another one pin, and you're gonna have a very fun shape where you'd be able to set what 2, 4, 5, and 8. Oh, but yeah, that's the issue. Is it always backfires? Always. Meanwhile, I have an Ishan 10 on the right for that Tanyao. If it's closed, it'll also potentially be Ipeco. Hand across the way is getting closer. It is Ishan 10. And the hand on the left, unfortunately, looks like it's just stuck.
홈,
And we do see the call for Tanya Dora here waiting on that 4 pin. There is one left in the wall. But a lot of upgrades. And no, the 3 shouldn't come out here. You might get a little greedy and cut the 4 later, though. We'll see how that shapes up. Oh,
Ricci.
dealer Ricci. Ricci, ooh, do you accept the Dora or do you take the Pinfu? Takes the greedy weight on the 4 pin for Ricci Dora. And I think that's fine because the 9 is actually a pretty terrible shape. You'd be drawing mostly to the 6. There's only one 9 left. So I don't have a problem with this. Now, this does mean that the 4 pin would be a double roan. That force looks dangerous, but it is pushed. You're sitting in 4th place. You don't usually have to think that hard, especially when you're in Tempai. Now, that's an interesting draw. Could have thrown the Dora there, could have thrown the 5 and waited on Dora Tonki. Instead, just throws the 3-so back. But the big question is, where's that last 4 pin? I know, you can't. Oh, there it is. Well, I think we're going to have two players Tempai here, rather, because I don't think that Gaetano is going to be able to make it to Tempai. We just have the 2 as expected. Dealer has the East pair here, and with a 1300 in the middle, you're fine just calling anything. I'd call even this 9. And yeah, says we don't really need to be that relaxed here. It seems like the only way this hand's likely going to develop is calling East anyway. And you're already Tempai, and you have one player who hasn't seen a single tile yet. So normally you'd cut the 1. There is a very distant Chanta. If you cut the 4, if you shift drawing a 2-so and then a 1-so, but that seems so far off that I'd prefer the. Oh, could call this as well. I would call this. You do get extra foo if you do this, and you have a much more flexible donkey. I would absolutely call that 9-so.
홈,
And foo is something that a lot of players don't necessarily think about, but right here we can see that this will be 40 foo because you're already showing 12 off those bones. On the right, well, that 1 mon just feels like it's destined to come out. Could even see a chi and a discard here.
치,
Throws the 1 pin, so dodges it for now, but that just feels like it's going to come out the instant there's any sort of upgrade in that hand. And we didn't even get to the rest of the hands, but across the way, decent shapes, but Adora, and other than that, no value. You'd really like to pull the 7-so in on the left, maybe an Itsu in pin, but I mean, Ricci Pinfu Dora is perfectly fine. I think the
치,
steals it. You have to call that. And I think the 1 just comes out. You could cut the 8. Oh, good dodge. But the problem is that 1's going to have to come out eventually. The question is, will we see the dealer switch? Now, when you have this con here, you have to have something to connect it to. So gets rid of the tile and just keeps safety here. I don't know if this is just a great read that the 1 is terrifying, but regardless, has dodged this deal in multiple times, and I certainly would have dealt into this. Now get a shape upgrade on the left. Wow, I'm very impressed by this dodge, but just sumo. And that will be 700 all, plus the Holmba, plus the Ricci stick. And I believe that is 200 points short now of first place. That's another great starting hand here. Ricci, possibly Peiko. Of course, you can always accept the 3 Mondora. On the right, looks like a Pinfu type hand as well, maybe a distant 79 Sanshku. Across the way, that's a Pinfu hand as well. Especially now, you could even get maybe a 5-6-7 or 4-5-6 Sanchiku. And on the left, you're really looking to accept the Dora because other than that, you don't have much value, but Ricci Pinfu Dora would be good enough. And we see dealer here cutting the penchant with the 1-2. Also allows this hand to shift to Sanchiku later, but we eventually have to cut the 9-so pair. There's another 2. You could even make a Tanya on the left. Ooh, Dora 2 now for dealer. And yeah, we'll definitely just go for the Tanya here. I think you pawn basically anything. The 3's a decent pawn. The 4's a decent pawn. The 2's even a decent pawn, even though you do have some overlap on those shapes. Oh, that 6-pin across the way massively helps that hand. You are still looking for a pair somewhere, though. That 3 Mondora on the left, this seems like an easy cheat. That 7
Gee.
gets rid of one of your bad blocks. The only consideration is maybe you would want to pawn it on the right, but instead passes and ends up cutting the 9 anyway. But dealer's hand looks by far the best here, but it may get shut down by that hand across the way that is sitting in a pretty nice Ishunten. Now this 2-3 isn't nearly as good as it looks because it would be potentially 4-8-10, and you can only win on the 6, on the 4 rather. Could chi that, but I don't think it helps the shapes. This is always the problem with Tanyao. Now the 1 pin is actually dead, so if you have a 2-3, you're not particularly thrilled with it.
Home.
Could pawn this and maybe even cut the 2-3. I think that's what I'd do. And that will be the decision here. Of course, you have that really needing the 3 or the 4 mon is kind of awkward, but you could always even pair up the 2 pin and cut the 3-4 later if you're worried about it. Oh, and another 2 there on the left, and that is a nice little hand that is developing. That is Ishan 10. You can pawn for Tanya Dora, but I don't think that would be enough on a road. Yeah, you need either a direct hit or a sumo. Yeah, that 5 doesn't help at all. Ishan 10 on the right, so I think everyone's in Ishan 10 at this point. Oh, and that 5 is not a bad tile. You cut the 2 pin here. This also allows you to pair up the 3 or the 4 in so, and you could use that as your pair. But you definitely got the 2 here, and it is removed. And then it's Tempai on the right. Could even Dama, and will Dama here for Tanya Pinfu waiting on 2-5 so. Of course, we know those 2 so have been called. There are also 3-5 so in hand, so only 2 left on the wall. And there really is an incentive to Ricci here. You just want the win. The worst case scenario, of course, is you do Ricci, and so oh, that is Tempai across the way. We'll take the very awkward Dama waiting on the 6. You could have just cut the 5 instead and waited on the 6-9 anyway, also adding Pinfu. Oh, that's an easy call. You pawn that, you cut the 5. This should be an instant call.
Home.
And there it is. This is Tanya Door 2 waiting on the 2-5. The 2-5 would now be double Roan if anyone dares push it. Oh, and that would have been the win. Oh, that 9 hurts. But we have 3 players Tempai ultimately and another South 4. And the string of dealer hands that were good has come to an end. You look at this hand and you go, Kokushi? But I don't think this is the type of hand that's going to get you that quick 1,000 points you're looking for. And we'll see how hard the commit is to Kokushi. Nope, giving up. Floating the Chanta. Does throw the Dora this early. So I'm not sure what the hand is going to be, but it looks like an attempted Chanta. On the right, that looks like a Pinfu hand, significantly better. You would potentially have the Shampon on the 9 so or 9 pin 9 mon, So you're looking to cut one of those pairs, just go Pinfu. Across the way, you have the Haku pair and maybe a distant 4, 5, 6 Sanchoku, but that I think that's very much just call and go, accept your third and move on. And on the left, that is actually Ishan Ten, but you only be Richi Pinfu. You'll love to be able to cut that 1 2mon and turn this into something more valuable. That's a great draw. Now you're looking at a potential Richi, Pinfu, Sumo, Tanyao, and maybe even an Ura. I think even without Ura, just because of all that Homba, you would manage to get to third place. Yeah, you would. And now it's a question: which pair do you want? Throws the 2 back. So basically, oh, there's the big draw you're looking for across the way.
Each.
Can even Richi this, and will Richi Haku waiting on 2 5mon. And that 2mon that is left over comes
Dom.
right out. Richi, Ipatsu, Haku, any Oro, I believe, would get to 30K. That'd be huge. But instead, still just the 7,100. So a nice little pickup there. And we have Gaetano with 26.8. We have Jessa with 16.6. Brian at -7.2. And John at -36.2. Started off at that dominant position early on and just unfortunate had a few deal ends as we continued in South round and ended up taking a big hit. So let me take a look at the overall standings. Gaetano is much closer to the safe area now, sitting in 6th place in the B3 division at 95. The cut line as of right now is 27.6. Kevin's just a little bit under, and these other players are still trying to climb. Jessa now into the positives. That's a good result for her. Gets to plus 2.2 overall. Still plenty of time left, and with 11 promotion slots, plus 50 will probably ultimately be good enough. So if you can get an average of 7 points over your next 7 games, that should be enough. And if it's not, it's going to put you really, really close. And then we have Jean, who took that big hit, and at -75.2, the season isn't over, but it's certainly hanging on by a thread. So really needs to pull through in this next game. When you're sitting at -75 and you only have 7 games left, and you figure you have to get to around plus 50, you definitely need to go on a tear. But you can certainly get 125 over the course of 7 games. And the game will be starting in about a minute. So I'm going to go grab a drink of water and we'll jump back in when the action starts. And it looks like the game has kicked off, and we see a whole bunch of pairs here. Two threes, not twos and threes, but 2 pairs of 3 in a great shape in Mon. I'm kind of wondering how you want to approach this hand. Could be Tanyao, could be even Sun Uncle here, could even be a late shift to maybe Sanjiku. I'd kind of like to cut the 1 here, the 1mon. And so we see a cut from the 3 pair. On the right, we see maybe a Honitsu, but I think just kind of the same situation. The 1, 2, 4, 4, 4. Sure, you can at least in theory use them as two blocks, but much like keeping the 2, 4, 4, 4 as a better shape, and most likely using the 4 as your pair in both situations. Across the way, looks like a few pairs there as well. Going to keep the option open for Chi Toy or Toy Toy, but you really have to fill in that pin. And look at that hand on the left. It doesn't con. I think I like the con here, but I think that we are going to see a Honitsu push. And I feel, regardless of what you're doing, Gaetano, that seems like a very aggressive play when you already have two Dora. So maybe thinking just has enough food. I guess anything that would work, especially you're already Ishan 10. So if you're going to do that, you could always just cut the 8 Mon instead and then decide to con later. When you have two Dora, I'm generally of the opinion that you just go straight efficiency. And that one so would be an extra draw, which I'd really like. You don't actually have the Mongon yet. So it'd be boosting yourself from 30 food to 70 would certainly get you there. But regardless, dealer here is now Ishan 10, could even pick up Sun Unko, looking for that 3 so. The hand on the right is now Ishan 10 as well for Richi Tanyao. Maybe Pinfu, maybe even Peiko in there somewhere.
リーチ
Oh, there's the 6. Okay, well, now you have the real question. The 4 is actually a pretty terrible weight. So I think you have to take this weight with the 6 Mon 3 so. There is one 3 so out and one 6 Mon in the hand. So 2 outs for Richi Tanyao and Sumo would be Sananko. And I think that's Tempai on the right, and it is. Well, Dama waiting on that same 6 Mon. Two should look reasonably safe with that early 3 cut. Oh, there's your last 6. Oh,
ロン
and it comes out. Double road. Richi Tanyao. No aura, but still 3,900. And then the Dama Tanyao for 1,300 on the right. We have East 1-1 here. You have a dealer with the Chun pair. Keeping the option open for a Honitsu. Normally, you just keep that 3 so, especially as Dora indicator. Maybe tunnel visioning in a bit on the Honitsu here. We'll see how aggressive it is. Okay, if you're going to do that, I think the 3 so is a mistake because you'd like to be able to pull in Dora. But if you're going to keep the Hatsu, like I don't mind it at all. And there's Tempai. Wait, no, that's Headless Ishanten. My mistake. And that's already a very strong hand. Not much value, but perfectly fine. That is a chi for Tempai.
チ
The question is, do you take the flexible Tonki? And does, waiting on that 9 so. On the right, we have an East pair. Decent shapes elsewhere. Maybe a Itsu in pin. Across the way, we see a West pair, which is Yakuhai. And we'll see dealer switching to that West weight, which is actually now dead and very unlikely to come out.
ロン
But just as I say that, deals in for 2,300. Normally, you would keep that West pair as it is your Yakuhai. And especially having pulled in that 6 Mon pair, you could ultimately go Shumpon on 6 Mon and West. But regardless, ends up breaking it and dealing in. A little sneaky shift there by the dealer. And we move to East 1-2, and dealer has a great starting hand here. Richi, Pinfu, Tanyao, Sanshuku. On the right, we see a Haku pair, maybe a 3-4-5 Sanshuku. It decides to pass the Haku, so looking for a lot more value. Across the way, decent shapes in So, and everything else is kind of rough. You'd have a floating Dora, though, so if that pairs up, you can basically go with anything. On the left, we see the Hatsu pair, and decent shapes everywhere, but not much value.
ポン
And you have decent shapes, but no value. Take your 1,000 and move on. I like that call a lot. Dealer now with a monster hand brewing. Oh, and there's your last Haku there on the right. As we always say, you don't have to pawn it if you just sumo. Could even call that for Tempai, but looking for a lot more value here. There's the
Home.
chew, and that seems like an easy pawn. Ooh, going full greed here, looking for the potential toy shift later. Oh, and now Ishanten for dealer. Richi Pinfu Itsudora. Not exactly the way I thought that hand was going to develop,
Kang.
but I mean, you'll take it. And there's our con. Could chi this for Tempai, but
Chi.
waiting on Dora is never a great feeling.
Home.
We'll need that 9. You cannot win on that 6. You can shift and cut the 1 for Furry 10, but I don't think that's a good way either. But would be... Oh,
Sumo.
just sumo. Okay, if you just sumo the Dora, that will fix your problem. 1,200 all, and Jessa is jumping way out here, near 40,000. And we haven't left East 1 yet. Dealer here has a tuned pair, decent shapes everywhere, nothing that's great, but I think this is similarly just a call and go hand, just because you want to be able to fill some of those shapes, especially if the 3 pin or the 3 so comes out. Maybe now you even think Cheetoy. I think I cut the 7 mon here, even though it is near Dora, because it gives maximum flexibility here, and that's what happens. There's the tune, and yeah, keeping the option open for Toy for now. You figure the 1mon's the likely to come out. The 3-6 is going to be very difficult to fill, though. On the right, that looks like 2-3-4 Sanjugu. And back to Dio that, well, I think your dreams of Torta are probably at an end now, but you'll take it.
Chi.
Across the way, looks like a potential 4-5-6 Sanjugu. Okay, that looks a lot better with the East pair. As soon as you call your Yaku, I'd be done with it. The rest of those shapes aren't particularly good. On the left, we see a few pairs. You'd like to turn that into Sun Anko. It's going to be very rough too, no matter how you do it. We do see the call on the right. The aim here is very clearly for the Tanyao Sanshoku, but will be very hard to fill it. And you'll just take any Tanyao here, especially with 900 in Homba. Well, okay, now you're Ishan 10. On the right, that definitely looking better for that. Oh, could even just call here. Doesn't want the cheap 1,000 Tempai, wants the 2,000. It could be Tempai waiting on the 7 mon right now, because your 4 mon would act as your pair rather than a potential set. And dealer here is Tempai on 3 so 1 mon. Would just be the 1 on hand. But when you get the 900 bonus, that one, oh, there it goes.
Rom.
Just a cheap little hand, but you win enough of those and it adds up. And just way out in front. And again, we're still in East 1. There's another very good starting hand here. Potentially Richi Pinfu, maybe a 3-4-5 Sanshku, likely Tanyao. On the right, few pairs, decent Pinfu shapes everywhere, maybe a distant 6-7-8 Sanshku. Across the way, looks like a 1-2-3 or 2-3-4 Sanshku. Maybe even Tanyao. And on the left, you have 2 Dora, so I don't believe you have to think very hard about that. Figure out a way to get a Tempai and have your 2 Dora cash in. Kind of an awkward shape now on the left, as you're just seeing pair-ups of everything here. I mean, now you're almost thinking Cheetoy after having paired all this up. It'd be interesting to see how greedy you would want to be if, say, 6 mon came out. You could even think Toy in that situation. But in the meantime, dealer's hand is getting much closer here. It would just be the Richi Pinfu Tanyao now, unless there is any Peiko in lower Mon that is shifted to. And that 1-2-3 Sanshogu seems to have filled, but throws it back. Just plays efficiently. And that is a Dama. Yeah, that's Dama waiting the 4-7. I think you're to do that, you just Richi for sure. Wait on the 4-7. There are 2 out and 2 in hand. So, well, now 3 left in the wall after that
Each.
draw. And the Sumagari doesn't do anything unless the 7 so comes right out. But the 1 will be discarded first. So you don't get the extra Ipatsu here. And the Sumagari Riichi, this is one of those where we talk about it all the time. It doesn't really do much for the hand to delay here a turn. Could see a pawn here,
ポン
like Jessa and Will. And the question is, which one do you want to throw? Because you want to lock in one of the pairs here. I don't like the 3-4 cut. If you're going to do that, you're taking a big efficiency hit. And you're getting rid of any potential defense now that you've made that call. Now, the 4 is now Nakasuji, so you can get rid of that reasonably safely. But you look at these shapes, and it's kind of yuck. Especially with a 4, which would be Furi 10. So that's going to be consideration. Well, okay, now you can at least consider something else. Well, there you go. Now you can cut the 7, which is Suji, or the 5 and take the Shampoo, waiting on the 3-7. And the 3s are gone. The 7s are 1 out, so just drawing to that last 7. It's the earlier 4-7, which has 2 out. So it is a 2 out versus 1 at this point.
つも
And the 1 wins. Just another little Tanyao. But at this point, all those Homba and that Riichi stick turn into a decent-sized hand. And just sitting at almost 46,000 here. As Gene's starting hand here, you're really looking for that 678 or 79 Sanshoku with this. On the right, feels like a Tanyao type shift with 2 Dora, so you're just calling anything going. Speaking of calling anything going, we see the East call, and I assume if the Hatsu comes out, that will also be called. And on the left, you have a couple Ryokan with the 579 pin and 135 Mon, and a floating Dora. So you're looking to do just connect something to Dora and hope the rest of the hand fixes itself. And there it is. Now you could even potentially go Tanyao if you want to cut the 9 Mon pair. And even if you don't, that's perfectly fine. We have a headless Ishan 10 for the dealer. Would really like to pair up the 6 or 8 pin. Alternatively, if you could draw the 6 Mon, you could lock in the Sanshoku. And great draw there on the left is now Ishan 10 for Riichi Dora. And now that upgrades the shape significantly. And there's the 7 pawn, and all of a sudden that dealer with that 6-8 goes, well, that was kind of useless. And cuts the 8 from the hand, immediately having seen that. Well, I guess you could take this. It's his Ishan 10 for Riichi Pinfu, potentially, Riichi Pinfu Dora. And now we have a Tenpai across the way on 4 pin and Hatsu for East or East Hatsu.
リーチ
And there's our dealer Riichi waiting on the 4-7. So both players are waiting on that 4 pin. The 8 is safe here. You could take the much wider weight if you throw the 4, but of course we know the 4 would deal in. It is passed. And there comes a Dora. I'm mildly surprised I didn't see that called.
ち
But there we see the call for Tenpai, waiting on the 5 so. 2 of those have come out now, so there are 2 on the wall. This 4-7 is actually a pretty terrible weight. The 7s are all gone and the 4s are all gone. You have to pay attention to those called tiles. There are a whole bunch of ones highlighted in orange off to the right. Oh,
Wrong.
there's the 5. We'll deal in on the right for the Sanshoku Tanyao Dora 2. Oh, I missed the Sanshoku. That is a Mongon. Sneaky little hand built there by Brian. That's going to Even though you had all those dealer wins, they weren't particularly big. So now within a Mongon of the first place, has a great starting hand here. Ricci, Tanya, Dora, most likely, maybe a shift to Honitsu along the way, but I think more likely just a Tanyao. On the right, we see some pairs, maybe an Ipeco, but I think you just go for anything you can get, probably Tanyao. Across the way, now that looks more like a Honitsu or Toy Toy type hand, where you have the completed Onko of 6 so, decent pairs elsewhere, and yeah, just throws the one. It connected to that 3 mon, doesn't want anything to do with it. So that looks like a Honitsu or Toy Toy. And on the left, we have the Haku pair, and honestly, other than that, the shapes are pretty rough. Maybe a Chanta in here, but I'm not really seeing any value, although Dora will always fix value problems. The dealer has an interesting shape here where you can accept the 5, the 8. Oh, ooh, that's a fun one. Yeah, it gets rid of the 7 here. This is a perfect Ishan 10 for Ricci Pinfudora, or at least Ricci Dora.
Pom.
And there's the pawn. We see the lock-in of the presumed Toy. Not necessarily guaranteed yet, but still very likely. Because of course you could even cheat this and take Tempai, but it doesn't want any of that. Looking for the 5200 here.
Pon.
And there is the Haku on the left has been called. Ooh, what do you do here? That's kind of an annoying draw. Just throws it back. Doesn't want anything to do with that. You could potentially argue for the 6-7 pin cut, but you'd need the 5-8 mon twice in order to get maximum value out of it. And interesting cut there with the 3. So I think I would have cut the 5 mon instead because you do still have a cheat toy. Could be scared of the rest of the table here, though. Well, that has to be Poland. Yeah, there's your Tempai waiting on 8, so 8 mon. There is one
Each.
8 mon discard, and that's it. But there's our dealer, Ricci Pinfudora. One does not look great, but I mean, you have enough to fight with dealers, so you should and will. Oh, it never feels good to have that Dora draw right after your Ricci, and it passes you to exhale a little bit. But that's I don't think you get away from this. I think you just deal it, and does Ricci Pinfudora. No aura, so only 5,800. Of course, only in quotes here. But there have been a lot of wrench on here. We're still only in East 2, and I think this is the 6th hand. But Dio here has a floating Dora, and you can see the makings of some shapes, but honestly, you ought to pair Yakuai and start calling, because this hand looks slow. On the right, also a floating Dora, but this looks much more like a Tanya type hand. Across the way, a few options. You could go Honitsu. You could go Ipeco. You could pair up one of your Yakuhai. Okay, keeping the options open, maybe even Chitoy. And on the left, we see the south pair, but it's not south round yet. Maybe a 5-6-7 Sanchoku shift later. I'm not really seeing much here. So honestly, looks like a bunch of bad hands. The one across for, I believe that Gaetano is probably the best, but it's not even that great either. These hands are all rough. And we're kind of in that situation where everyone who has that single door is like, when's someone going to throw ideas? Okay, I've had enough of this, and gets rid of it. And now you see all those pairs. Like, maybe I should have kept that West and gone Chitoy. Because these shapes still aren't great. I mean, the most interesting hand is the one across the way, but it really hasn't budged much. Well, okay, now he's shunten for Chitoy. Just had to say something for the hands to move. You don't really like that 9-mon pair. You'd love to turn this into Chinitsu, but you're going to take what the game gives you. And yeah, that's when you know it's Chitoy, and you see those pairs in your pond, and you're sitting here in Ishanten going, yeah, that's Chitoy, all right. I believe that's Tempai on the right. Let's see. Yeah, you'd reach on the
1
5 so. You could also do it on 2, of course. And waiting on the 6-9. Of course, it would be Richie Nomi if one on the 9, and Richie Tanya if one on the 6. The 9-6, we see 2 9s out and 2 6s out, so still 4 on the wall, which is pretty good for a 12th. Oh, there it is.
ロン
You can see the temptation. Do I want to pass and hope to seal on the entry? Is no. You want your win and rewarded with the Oradora. So you get the 2,600 anyway. And does put you in a much better 3rd place. Move to East 3. Dealer has a completed shape in pin, but the rest of them are kind of rough. I mean, distant with the Sanshoku, but I'm honestly not seeing much. Now I'm kind of thinking Itsu and pin on the right looks like a 3-4-5 Sanshoku, maybe a Tanyao, and of course that Dora. Across the way, well, there's an East pair and a Chun pair, so I'm just calling anything. And on the left, another pretty solid hand. Eventually Richie, Pinfu, Tanya, Dora, maybe even any Peiko.
ポン
There's the first call. I think this tune comes out the instant something doesn't fit,
Pong.
and there's the tune. So 2 calls across the way for Jessa, and already Ishan 10. You'd love to turn it into Chanta for some extra value here, but unless the 9 pin pairs up, that seems unlikely. So you'll just take your 2,000 if it comes. You definitely throw the 4 so here because the early 5 so discard. And as mentioned, there are potential shifts to Chanta here. Well, okay, you could go with a toy shift. That's certainly not something I expected, but that can happen here. If you pair up the any of your 3 lone tiles here, you can progress that way. The hand on the left keeps getting cheaper and cheaper no matter how long we. Yeah, it just throws the 9 so back. Doesn't even want the
Pong.
shapes as they are. There's our poem for Tempai. Across the way, it is East and Chun. Of course, you pair either of those 7 and 8-mon up, you absolutely take the toy here. You'd love that upgrade. And that 9-mon in dealer's hand just feels like it's going to come out and deal in. The question is when. The answer is not yet, because now you've paired up the 6. You at least have some option to use that as a penchant. Ooh, big draw there with the 6-mon there on the left. Ooh, and now dealer is Ishan 10 if you just cut the 3 so here. Which looks very safe and is. Let's see. Is everyone Ishan 10 here? Yeah, they are. Oh my, wow, perfect draw
Yeet.
for the dealer. Riichi Penfudora waiting on 1-4-mon now. And 1-4 has, what, 4 out and 4 left? There comes your Dora, and we have a Tempai on the left for Tanya Nomi waiting on 6-pin 3 so Shampon. Of course, the 3-so did come out for the dealer, so it is Gimbutsu. But I think there's a Tempai on the right for Pinfu Sanshuku Dora on the 3-pin. Oh, at 6 is looking really bad. And you can tell the hesitation here does not want to throw. It says, yeah, let's get out of here. The 6-so doesn't look that bad to me. Given the 2 early 8s, it seems unlikely to deal in. But nice dodge regardless. Oh, there's your sumo on the 9-mon. Will be the extra foo there with 2 foo from the sumo, so it gets 2,700 plus the Richi stick. Will be enough for first place for now as we move to East 4. Dealer has the double East, so you just call that. Anything else is good, but this is actually Chitoi East on 10. And this is one where I probably would just go for the Chitoi. Toitoi is very hard with these shapes, and even Honitsu is so far away that I'm looking to just cut this 6-so as quickly as possible.
Home.
Yeah, I would not call that ace. I think you've cheapened the hand, and it's going to be very hard to call basically anything else here. Anything in the 3 to 7 range is very likely to be used by other players. On the right, though, we have a potential 1, 2, 3 Sunshoku. Across the way, we see the Chun Call and a Hatsudora floater. Rest of shapes aren't great, but they're not bad either. On the left, we need a Peiko in either lower pin or lower mon. Maybe even a Chitoi there as well. At 2, I feel you have to call that 2 if you call the East. This Toy is just so hard here. That at least makes your shapes good. If you call it 2, then you have a 3-4 run, and this 5 would give you Tempai now waiting on the 5-8 pin.
Each.
All sorts of options, but the first Tempai is on the left for Richi Nomi, but Sumo would be Sananko. Waiting on 4-mon, there is 1 out, and 9-so, there is 1 out. So 2 left in the wall. Really hoping to sumo one of them. We see a Dora pair across the way now. Pulls in another Hatsu. Oh, and now that 4 is Nakasuji. So we'll see if it comes out. Wow, dealer's actually looking like might be able to make this into that toy, but still Ishan 10. Uh-oh.
Long.
Deals into the Richinomi. And 1 aura. There is extra foo because the Zonko. So 3,200 points gets the Richi stick back into the South round. Dealer has Pinfu, maybe Distant Itsu, but basically anything you get with Richi Dora is good enough. If you can add Itsu or even Ipeiko now, potential if you draw 1 pin or 4 pin. On the right, you're looking to accept that Dora. Kind of the same situation. Richi Dora is probably the play here. Across the way, you see 2 Dora. You're looking for any excuse to go for that 79 Sanshoku, but you have that second Dora you're not quite sure what to do with. You're going to need 2 7-pin in order to get both. And of course, when Dora Indicator is one of them, it's very hard to get any of them to come out. On the left, we see a Haku pair. Very, very distant chats at Daisangan, and it dies there with the other Chun coming out. Maybe you go Honitsu, but you'd also accept Dora and be floating the options between your value coming from Honitsu or coming from that Dora. Ooh, dealer is now Ishan 10. Oh, I don't like the 6 there. I think the play is normally cut the 2 pin here because you all have all sorts of options. This makes it so if you draw like the 1 mon, it doesn't really help you. but looking for the most value possible, and that would be Ricci Pinfu Ipeco Dora. Problem is that 1-4 is dying off very quickly as we see 4 of them already discarded, and another 2 locked in the hand of the right. Great draw there on the left. And you're definitely thinking that Honitsu now. You're keeping the Dora, but I'm wondering how long it's going to be held. Because especially now, I just get rid. Okay, there it goes. And everyone goes, wait a second, that's a Dora. And you can tell you that there was a desire to see it pwned, but look at the hand and says, wait, I don't have a Yaku, so passing is absolutely correct there. Yeah, this 1-4 is just looking rough. I haven't even mentioned it, but there is an Ishan 10 on the left for that closed Honitsu, maybe even Ipeco. I believe that is the last of the 1-4 pins, so dealer is just kind of stuck here. Oh, yeah, that hurts. That's why I would have kept the 7. Now you'd at least be tempo on that 1-4. But really looking to draw the 2 or the 3 here. And you take the 1-1, but it's less than ideal. You have an Ishan 10 across the way. An
リーチ
odd value. And there is Tempai. That is a 6-9 weight for Ricci, Honitsu, possibly Peiko. But I think that weight is no one left, and that's the one across. So near dead. I can't see any way that 6 ever comes out. Oh, and dealer does get to Tempai finally. Dealer gets his Tempai in the very last draw. And with that, we get 2 players Tempai and another South 1. We see floating Dora. Everything's kind of connected, but just doesn't want the door. It doesn't fit in this hand. Also, potentially thinking Honitsu could even call that north, but decides to pass. On the right, maybe a 6-7-8 Sanshoku. You have 2 Dora, so I think you just call and go with it. Across the way, I don't know, Kokushi? That's another one of those hands where you go, I don't like this. What do I do with it? Well, now you completed your shape. I think you go conventional, maybe even Chanta here. So I'm going to cut one of those honors. That 8-mon feels like one of those things that this is a sign not to go for the Kokushi here. On the left, we see a south pair and a west pair. Maybe a very distant chance at a Shosushi, but regardless, the south is a Yaku high, and you're looking for probably Honitsu. Now, I absolutely would have called that south. I'd have called the south and gone Honitsu with this. I think not calling it just chokes this hand completely. May already be giving up on this hand, but I think there is a way to play it. And when you're sitting at 9,200, a Mangan here would be a huge boost. But the fastest hand now looks to be the one on the right. We see the East called and then the Hatsu called. So already Ishan 10 for Hatsu Honitsu Dora 2. And that'll upgrade it to perfect Ishan 10. You'd have a little overlap with the 5-so, though. And the 6 is one of the tiles that does not fit into this hand. And there we see the south call. But now it just feels so late. You're behind everyone at this point. And we see the rest of the shapes never really improved. So
チ
well, now an Ishan 10 for the dealer. And you could call that and go Toy Toy, but I don't really like it that much. Okay, we'll see the shift on the left to probably Chanta, South, and Dora. Well, at 4, that'll be a
Pon.
pawn, and we'd have Tempai on the right. Waiting on 5, 8 so, and now there's overflow from the Honitsu, so everyone should be very scared now. We have 2 players with floating tiles that would deal in, but that 7 so will allow you to integrate it very nicely. Oh, and there's a 5 so.
ポン
Okay, I've had enough of this. Pawn's the 5 pin, and we'll just try and lock in the toy here. Waiting for the north, which is dead, unfortunately. Which is why I think if you do that, you cut the north. Maybe just going for the K10 or Yakula's Tempai. But going to be very, very hard to finish this end. Uh-oh. You can't throw that, can you?
No.
But does. We'll deal into Mongon. That is a direct deal into the competition. And so they switch places as Jessa deals into Brian, and Brian's up over 50K now. And has, well, not a great hand. With every tile in your hand is even except for a couple of 9s. You're not particularly thrilled with that. On the right, looks like a 1, 2, 3 Sanshoku. Across the way, a Chun pair, a floating Dora, decent shapes everywhere. And on the left, looks like a Ricci Pinfu Tanyo, or you could always pair up that Dora and go with Dora 2. Now, definitely shifting towards that Ipeco on the left with that 2, 2, 3, 3, 4 shape. My question is, what's your pair going to be? Is it going to be that 7 pin? Is it going to be the 9 so? And we'll see. Dealer's hand is finally starting to come together, but even so, still no value. Well, okay, now you're Ishan 10 on the left. Getting that 8 so will be very difficult, but I mean, you'll take it. Ricci Door, or especially Ricci Pinfui Peiko Door would be great. The 8 so is already 2 out, though, so you're not really feeling confident about it. Oh, yeah, there's the backfire. Cuts the 7, and of course, what happens? You draw the next 7. I think that's just an efficiency thing. The only reason to be keeping the 9 is a potential Itsu, but that didn't really seem to fit in this hand. Unfortunate with a backfire there, but you have your pair lock in, so that's good enough. Also, potential shift now to even a 3, 4, 5 Sunshoku with the right draws, but that is unlikely. Dealer draws a door here, but it's not going to fit in this hand. We'll keep it for a bit, though. On the right, Ishan 10 really wants that Sunshoku, but it isn't coming yet. Oh, and now we see that 7 pin would be Tempai here, but having thrown it back, this hand's kind of stuck in Ishan 10. Yeah, you have to throw the 6-1 back specifically because of the 7. You get tempted by the extra efficiency, but 4E10, all of us always tends to kill your efficiency. And across the way, that Honitsu is not there, but it is certainly developing in the right direction. Now, interesting cut with the 9 so. Of course, there's only one 8 so left, so it's understandable, but this hand is very likely going to end up 4E10. If you deal here, you absolutely cut Dora. It just came out. The only person you deal into is very unlikely to be Tempai here, and keeping it around is very dangerous. Ishan 10 now for could even kept the Tanya, but I definitely would have thrown 9 so there. But when you're sitting in first place, doesn't want to feed that Dora to anyone who wants it, just wants his hand to end from the looks of it. Oh, and that's a bit tragic with that other 9 so draw on the left. And there we see the shift to the relatively safe east. And that is a live tune. Could be con for the extra draw, but doesn't take it. Dealer is now has a potential Yaku, but honestly, you're going to take anything. And we now have the Tempai on the
8、
right for Sanchoku Nomi. And now we have Tempe on the left. It is Furitan on that Shampoo and 7 pin
1、
7. So that'll be a cheat. And the question is, oh
4、
no! The 6 was safe, the 3 was not. Deals into the only way that's going to happen. And a bit unfortunate the 26, but honestly, you're not that mad about losing dealer to that situation. Well, we move to South 3. And dealers on the right here has looks to be a Tanyao type hand. Be able to pull an Adora, but doesn't really fit in this hand. Across the way, we see the Hatsu pair. Now on the right, we see the Hatsu pair. Maybe 1, 2, 3 Sanchoku with Chanta would be really nice to improve. But wow, that nice pass of that Hatsu. I would have called that, and I would not have gotten that Haku pair up. But now you're thinking something much bigger. But you still absolutely accept the 1, 2, 3 Sanshoku, Chanta, Haku Hatsu if it comes that way. Across the way, we see the South pair up in a floating Dora. And there's the
ポン、
Hatsu. I imagine that will be called. It is. On the left, that looks like a potential Richi Pinfu. Well, I guess Richi Dora, not Pinfu yet. You'd love to be able to shift to the 5, 6, 7 Sanchoku if you draw, say, 5 so. But I think you're going to take Richi Dora regardless, especially in first place. And Dio's looking at the hand going, what do I do with
1、
this 3? Just throws it back. Will be cheat. Yeah, okay. So we're going to see the attempt at the Sanshoku on the right. Also keeps the 1 for potentially using that as a pair. But there's only one of those left. And if you draw the 3, the shape's terrible anyway, because you see 3 of the 2s. So honestly, I don't like keeping the 1/1 around any longer than I have to. Dealer's hand is kind of stuck where it is. Oh, well, that fixed your
1、
problem. That is Richi Dora Goodway waiting on the 4/7 mon. There are 4 outs, so 3 in the wall. There are 4 outs, so 4 on the wall. I can math.
カン、
Oh, Con!
スモ、
Con! Sumo Rinshan! Wow! Richi, Rinshan, Sumo, Doratu, and Uratu. And just like that, this game goes from being very close to all of a sudden Brian having a commanding lead. And the question is, will everyone be able to will anyone be able to stay over 30K? And the answer is probably, unless there's a big deal in. But we look at dealer here, maybe 1, 2, 3 Sanchoku. You have a Dora, maybe an Itsu in Mon. On the right, we have a potential 4, 5, 6 Sanchoku. You also have the extra floating Dora. Across the way, feels like a Tanyo type hand, and especially with that score, you're very much in the call and go. And on the left, you're looking for some way to make value, but it's probably not here, so I think you just take anything. And your 1,000 points to be done with it, that Hatsu pair. You'd love to upgrade to Honitsu. We'll be keeping the options open, but if you're going to do that, I think you keep the 1/1. And now I have the completed shape in pins, so I think this is just going to be take the 1,000, be done with this hand, be done with this game, and not worry about it. And there's the Hatsu, and it is passed. Okay, this is a very greedy play. I'm not really sure where you're going with this hand, but John has some potential here. The question is, what do you do with it? Now you have another pair. Okay, cuts from the penchant. I don't like keeping the 7 so route if that's going to be your decision. You've also discarded that 5 so. So 6 would just be a 4/10. Oh, and there's your backfire on the 9 mon. Yeah, I have a very nice Ishan 10 on the right. The 8 mon would be a much better cut there. You have an enormous shape as is. I think we talked about that couple days ago. That's an amazing shape with the 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8 potential 3-sided weight on 2, 5, 8 there. Dealer has two door and wants this hand to push, and it's just not budging. Now we see an Ishan 10 across the way for just the Tanyao. And 6 so may end up killing a Tanya. I think you cut the 3 mon here. Cuts the 4, looking for more value here. Could even potentially turn this into a Sananko.
Pom.
But there's the pawn. This will be tempo. I would absolutely cut the 6 so you don't have to worry about the potential 9 so. Does and is waiting on 5 so for Tanya Nomi to end the game. We'll see if it comes out right here. The 6 pin may come out, but if it's not the 6, it feels like going to be that 5. Throws the 3 instead. The 3 is a very inefficient cut here. You're kind of giving up all your paths forward, but as we can tell, it wouldn't deal in. So I guess that's something. Oh, and there's your 4. Okay, now you have a nice little Ishan 10. But again, ends up cutting the 4, so. Oh, and now we have an Ishan 10 on the left. Oh, and Tempai here for dealer.
1.
Is an easy reachy. I like the shampoo and just go for the Dora weight here. Looking on the 1 so 8 pin, and there's one so out, so 1 left in the wall. Could be a big comeback type hand, and 1 8 pin left, and it is also on the wall, so Sumo would be Mongon anyway. And Brian wants nothing to do with it. Is way out of here. We have a tempo on the right, and it comes right out. The Dama with the Hatsu getting to Tempai, and the Hellweight 3-mon comes out because it had been boned. There was just one in the wall, and it comes right out. And really unfortunate there for Gaetano. But the story of this game is definitely Brian rolling and picking up 44.6. In second, Jessup picking up 10.9 for another reasonably solid second. Will be in much better position than was coming into these two matches. In third, we have Jean at minus 14.4, and in last, Gaetano with minus 41.1. Still a whole bunch of action, but I think everything's highlighted by that Rinshawn. Let's take a look at the overall standings. And let's look for these players. Brian is significantly above the cut line now. Gaetano is the cut line at 54 now. Justin now moves up to 15th and certainly within striking range there at plus 13. And John, not over, but again, really needs a run. It's just not in a good position here. And I think that's about all. There may be some games cast in this channel later this evening. We have a big gap, and there are a whole bunch of Ren shots. I think I'm going to hang it up for myself here. Thank you to Michael behind the scenes running the broadcast. This is when we do the obligatory plugs of the YouTube, of the following us here on Twitch. Of course, you can sign up on the site. We're still looking for people to join for next season, as always. And so this is Korak for the American Riichi Mahjong League signing off. Have a good afternoon or evening wherever you are.